Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. You'll probably notice that at the start I've just started a new intro. I just thought that would be a nice thing to add, just as we're moving through trying to make this channel a bit bigger. So the aim of this video is basically just going to be and try and sum up a lot of the action we had at the weekend. A lot of very interesting action, and we were really quite treated as boxing fans. So I think the best place to start is on the Saudi card because that's probably the most substantial out of the two events at the weekend, well, the two biggest events. So, well, on both cards, it was a night of upsets, but especially on the Saudi card. So I'm just going to touch over a few fights now. Um, I think the first consequential fight on that card was probably, well, you could say the Sergey Kovalev fight was a significant fight. That was a good fight. Uh, First few rounds, it was quite back and forth. You probably could have scored the first few rounds either way, but as the fight went on, you could really see Kovalev's age and the fact that he wasn't a natural cruiserweight. And the longer the fight went on, the more you got to see that. So, um, yeah, it was a clear win. It was a good victory for Robin, and well, see how far he goes in the cruiserweight division because even though he looked bigger against Kovalev, he didn't look like a particularly big cruiserweight, which was what one of the talking points on the commentary of the stream that I was watching was bringing up. One of the scorecards was 95-94. That received some controversy. I could see kind of a close-ish card, maybe not that close, but it was competitive for the first. Yeah, like I said, for the first few rounds it was competitive, but then Kovalev started tiring, and Robin kind of started putting his stamp on the fight. You know, started imposing his will on Kovalev, and I mean Kovalev certainly showed that he still wanted to be boxing. Um, you know, he still had this ramrod jab that a lot of people know him for, but he just didn't have the X factor anymore, which played a big factor in the fight. Okay, and then another big consequential fight, I would say, is Frank Sanchez, who ended up losing to Agit Cabello. Now, this fight was interesting for a few reasons. It was interesting because, obviously, in the prediction, it was quite a closely predicted fight, but most of the people that we kind of talked to were favouring Sanchez to win. One of the key notable things in this fight was you could see Sanchez come to the ring in a knee brace, which may have factored his performance in the fight, but we have seen him shell up pretty often as well. So it's hard to tell how much of a factor it had in the fight, but we can tell it did have a factor in the fight and the fight outcome. So first few rounds pretty non-consequential, but as the rounds ramped up, it was similar to the Makhmudov fight in the sense that as the rounds went on, Cabello started, growing and growing more into the fight and growing in confidence with that. And it was actually a body shot that dropped Sanchez for the first time and ended up being his undoing. So I can't remember what round it was, but yeah, I just remember Cabello landing a big body shot on Sanchez, going down, and it was kind of the beginning of the end from there. Um, you could tell Sanchez wasn't moving as much, but I don't know how much of that had an impact on the result. I just don't know whether Cabello was just more hungry on the night because we've seen when he does come to Saudi, he really grasps these opportunities with both hands, and he certainly did then. So we're definitely going to be seeing him in more big fights. And I mean, listen, with Sanchez, it's only one loss. It's quite a consequential loss, but it's still a loss. And we can see him bounce back. It might not be in Saudi, but we can still see him in big fights. I mean, let's not forget he was the B side against Efe Dragba, and he won that. So I don't think that's the last we'll see of him. But I guess that's one of the issues with Saudi is people are getting paid so much money. It's kind of like if they get injured, there's a chance they might miss the opportunity to get that kind of money again. So they risk going in injured. But great performance from Cabello. And then we had we had Joe Cordina versus Anthony Kakachi. Um, really big upset here. I kind of wish I had done a prediction video on this fight because even though I didn't think Kakachi was going to win, I thought he would surprise a lot of people with the effort that he put in, and he certainly surprised a lot of people in this fight. Really quite well, it was quite technical for the first few rounds, but then Kakachi drops Cordina really heavily with a beautiful lead time shot. But there was some controversy in this fight. I don't know how much of that is settled by now, but one of the controversies in the fight was that the referee told Kakachi to break and stop boxing, and he didn't. Um, so that was one of the big controversies, and that's when he had a lot of success versus Cordina that singular time then. Um, and then it just became a war of attrition as the fight went on. There's Cordina no short of heart, and Kakashi gets it done. It really shocked the world. New IBF champion, and it just shows when you get these opportunities, people who may not get these opportunities usually, they take them with both hands, and you've got to be prepared for the best version of that person. And while I don't know what Cordina was preparing for, it just looked like Kakachi was the better man in the night. So really good fight, really good stoppage, and pretty big upset. And then we get onto the main event, the rematch between Myris Breedis and Jai Opetaia. A fight of which the first fight I watched the full thing. Um, and for the first 9 rounds or so, it looked like it was going to be a much less consequential fight than the first one. It was Jai Opetaia was very clearly ahead, and Myris Breedis just looked like he wasn't doing much. He couldn't really seem to find the target and was getting pieced up, if we're being honest. But Myris Breedis, both of them get broken noses in this fight, and it seems like Jai Opetaia is badly affected by his broken nose, and he's Breedis has a better 10th round, and then Opetaia is basically on skates for at least the 12th and wasn't in particularly good shape in the 11th. So the fight was completely turned on its head from what it was for the most of the fight. But Opetaia, man, he's got that Samoan heart. So, it comes to mind like David Tua, Joseph Parker. He's got that kind of heart, and he hangs in there. He sticks in, and a fight that was looking like it was going to be fairly non-consequential. He does well to see himself out of. So it just shows anything could happen. And then the main event, I've already done a video on the main event, so check that out if you haven't seen it already. But um, Usyk gets it done. Very good chess match for the first few rounds, but you could tell. Well, both of them are making each other work hard. Tyson was making Usyk keep up a high pace, and Usyk was making Tyson kind of back. Tyson was backed up a lot, and I wasn't expecting to see that. So very good kind of fight from a technical standpoint, and it ended up being a war in its own kind of way. Not particularly a conventional war, but a war in terms of like fencing, fencing, but power behind it. Where every single mistake can cost you points and it can cost you your health. And Fury made a big mistake in the ninth and paid for it, and nearly paid for it via stoppage. Um, peach of a punch. And I got this one wrong. I predicted Fury by unanimous decision. That knockdown really set the tone for the next few rounds that were to come. And those were the rounds that I feel like earned Usyk the fight. The really good fight, and the kind of fight that we were hoping for Undisputed. One that's technical but has both guys showing heart at the same time. Because both guys took some big shots in that fight. Um, One of the notable shots from Fury was probably his uppercut, similar one that knocked out Dillian White, and Usyk took that really well. But both were wobbled, both had success technically, but it was Usyk who came out the better of the two, and that knockdown was really a turning point in the fight, and was a turning point in the scorecards, with that single knockdown being the difference between that and a draw. Okay, so now let's go on to the top rank card. I'm not going to cover the whole card for this. I'm just going to cover the top two fights, which were Giovanni Santillan and Brian Norma Jr. and Emmanuel Navarrete versus Dennis Berencic. Now, the co-main, very good fight, and another one I got wrong. It was completely not what I expected. Like I said before, Brian Norman had looked okay but not spectacular in his prior fights, and I was thinking that momentum from Giovanni Santillan's last win over Alexis Rocha would be enough to get him over the line in this one and fairly comfortably. But how wrong I was, and beautiful performance from Brian Norman. He threw a ton of his shots with intent, which is something that hadn't really seen much of him do before. So it was something he clearly planned and worked on for this fight. Threw a lot of his shots with intent and ends up getting a knockout in the 10th. It was a great fight, war of attrition, and beautiful counter punching from Norman. Kind of breaks down the volume punching of Santillan. So congrats to him. Great game plan, great execution, and a great win to earn the WBO interim title at 147. Very consequential division at the moment. And then we had the main event, which, I mean, I'm not going to say it was a great fight because it wasn't really a great fight, but I think you saw some more kind of good technical aspects, especially from Berencic at times, but not much volume from either guys. So not too much to say about that fight. Berencic gets the decision, which actually surprised me. I wasn't expecting him to get the decision. Not that I didn't necessarily thought he won, but because he was fighting in the away corner. And usually when it's kind of a close-ish fight like that, either it's a draw or the guy fighting on the home promotion gets the decision. But that wasn't the case in this situation, and Denis Berencic gets the decision and makes it 2-0 for Ukraine in high-profile championship fights. Um, I had a feeling Navarrete would lose at lightweight eventually, but I didn't think this was going to be the fight that would do it, and Denis Berencic went out there and proved me wrong and showed his technical aspects of the game and got it done. So now we have two Ukrainian lightweight champions, and yeah, really interesting weekend in summary. Lots of upsets, lots of great fights, and it really showcased the best of boxing, I think, when you take the opportunities and you grasp it with both hands. And I think we all love to see that, and we love to see when the scoring is fair, when people get the best out of that. And I think that's where I'm going to conclude it.